This is another reason I love this exercise. It's because it makes you have to distribute. When you get into boxing, and when you get into hitting the bags, when you get into throwing punches, you see a lot of boxers going like this and working on staying loose, right? Really pretend like you're doing a hook. Always practice after the jab, after the combo, defense. Yo, what is good, YouTube family? It's your boy Joe Fit Johnson, back at it again, bringing y'all some fire content. So recently I had a few of my videos going viral based off the hands. And to be honest, I never expected my account to be blowing up based off of shadow boxing and boxing. To be honest, like, this was just stuff I used to post on my story, but I would never actually post on my feed in terms of my workouts and things like that. People ask how long I've been training. I've been training for a few years. First time joining a real gym was here in Bali. Shout out to Soma. But yeah, today we're gonna be bringing y'all through some workouts. We're gonna be going through some rotations, right? But not only rotations, because people are gonna see my videos and think that, oh, I'm just gonna sit here and just get a strong rotation. But it's about the fluidity and the movements as well, right? The flexibility, right? The mobility, and actually knowing how to use it, right? So whether it be from the ones, right? Or the twos, right? Or the hooks, right? Really using, right? The rotation of it all. So even a drill that I really like doing, we can start off with is just like what I'm doing now, right? Just being loose and just working on fluidity, right? Working on the actual rotating of the torso, right? 2, roll, 2, roll, right? Hook, right? Even just being a little dramatic with it right now, so when you actually use it, right, it's just like second nature, right? Another drill that I like to do is just practicing the ones and the twos, right? So with the ones, each time that you one, it's a step, bop, 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 right? And then with the two, I like to usually use a dowel or a broomstick and work on rotating here, bop, right? I don't have the dowel right now, I'll show you in a second, but boom, 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 boom. You get me? So it doesn't look as though if we don't have a dowel, but just imagine there's a stick, right? There's a stick being held behind me, right? Like I'm squatting, right? A stick here, and every time you jab, you twist with the 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. You get me? And how that'll look when you're actually throwing it will be 1, 2, 1, 2, right? Actually twisting. A lot of people are here with their punching, right? That's where the twist comes in, right? Get me? This ground that I'm standing on is not straight, so it's a little bit hard. Also, my channel is not for goldfish brains. I know that all of our dopamine receptors are cooked, but you have to, you gotta stay, right? Be patient, you're gonna get some. So for next, we're gonna get into it with some dumbbells. So something I always do to help with hand speed is always shadow box with dumbbells. And you can also work the same things that we were just working, right? So we can just, one, right? Every time that you jab, it's a step, bop, 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 right? Step, right? Something else that you can do, especially for beginners, I mean, all levels, is put something on the ground. All right, so you're gonna wanna make 2 lines on the ground. You're gonna wanna practice stepping into those lines with each jab, right? This is something I also like to use with ladders. You're gonna be here. Step, 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 right? Then you can go step, 2, right? Again, look at the rotation, right? Step, 2. And you wanna be balanced, right? So if somebody, you wanna be planted here in your base. All right, so you're here. Roll. Roll. Another pro tip that I really recommend is warming up your wrists, right? Not only warming them up, but getting them strong. When you get into boxing, and when you get into hitting the bags, when you get into throwing punches, your wrists are gonna hurt, right? But not only are they gonna hurt, but they need to be strong. You need to make sure you're warming them up. So a few things that I like to do is I like to use the bands and do wrist curls, right? You can use bands You can use dumbbells, also getting on the floor, flipping them over on all sides. But first you wanna start off with something super light, and you wanna hit all angles, right? So forward here, right? Vertical here, right? Upside down here, rotations here, right? And then you're gonna progressively overload and go heavier with that as well. You can also use the band, so you can step on it, you can attach it to something, and you can work on strengthening the wrists. Again, all sides, right? So we have here, right? We have here, and then we have here, okay? Another way that you can, is I like to grab a kettlebell and work on the rotation here, right? And again, you can progressive overload with this as well. And you wanna work on controlling the dumbbell, the kettlebell. So as it's rotating, yes, you're allowing your wrist to rotate, but you're also controlling it and pausing it to get that wrist stronger. You also wanna make sure you're stretching, right? You're stretching from your hips to your torso so that you can properly get a rotation, right? So you don't want to just get straight into, loading up with resistance bands and doing these different rotational movements without actually having the capacity to move in a full range of motion, right? Full range of motion, both in the torso and the hips, right? Because the power actually is going to come from the ground up through the hips into the torso, right? Here, right? Practicing the kinetic chain and the combinations from how you're distributing your weight. So if you're here, right, the kinetic chain is loaded up here for it to just be a continuous pattern, right? And then from here, your weight and your power is here, and it's easy for you to distribute here, right? And then from here, you can here, roll, here. We'll get into footwork later. If you watch my content, you know that this is something I swear by, but it's gonna be the around the world. So you're always gonna get a band. This is good for the shoulders, the chest, opening up, right? With boxing, you're using a lot of shoulders. You're often here, right? Kind of curled up. So it's important you hit that posterior chain so that your posture is proper, you're opened up, you don't actually have a slouch. It's also gonna help with, right, being snappy. Whop, whop, right? There's different types of jabs. You got the flick jab, whop, right? And then you got the stick jab, whop. You get me? So it's important to understand what you're working on as well and making sure you're loose with it, right? You see a lot of boxers going like this and working on staying loose, right? Being able to pop, right? Like you're catching a fly, pop, right? Pop, you get me? And then you got the pop, right? The stiff, pop, pop, and then you got the flick. You get me? Another drill that I like to get into are gonna be the jabs. Again, with the dumbbells, working on the ones, working on the twos. You can set an alarm, you can use a boxing app and go one round, just jabs, right? One round, 1 2s, right? Consistency, practicing the same thing is gonna be super, super important, right? It's that footwork, right? Also, I love the one glove drill. Around, just one glove on each hand, working the jab, right? The lead hook, right? And then you got the backhand for a round, just one glove, right? Just working on, okay? The second drill I like to do is with the band, right? So you're gonna work on the jabs with the band. You can do the ones, you can do the twos. Same as with the dumbbell, but with this, you're gonna be focusing more on, again, not the flick jab, but the stick jab. And what I like to do with the band is I like to actually make sure that I'm sticking it here, right? So I try to give it a slight pause, although the band is pushing you back, right? And then with the two, you're gonna wanna really emphasize turning that back hip and rotating the torso. And to make it realistic, always practice after the jab, after the combo, defense, right? So that's a slip, that's a roll. If that's a slip, that's a roll. It's a counter, right? It's a block, it's a parry, Always do something, because every time you throw something, there's something coming back. So that's just something else that I work on. Again, I'm not a professional, but these are the things that I work on and that you can work on to get better by yourself as well. All right, so some of y'all may be curious about what I actually use to wrap the resistance band. This is called the super band for one. And right now I just have it wrapped on a plate on this desk with a kettlebell on top, just something heavy so it doesn't drop. But I would wrap it on any pole. Right now there's a gym over there, but there's too many people. So I'm just over here, and you just gotta get creative. So yeah, next we're gonna work on the hooks, right? So again, this is attached. All right, next we're gonna work on the bandit hooks. So actually, one of these videos went viral, and it's because it really helps with the snap, right? So this isn't a hook that you're trying to generate and be super low with. It's more of a snap hook. So you're here, and you just pop, pop. All right, just a quick pop, 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 pop. Wow, 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 wow. All right, next we got plate rotations, right? So for this, I like to go side to side and uppercuts. So we're here, we're making sure we're always planted and balanced. This is another reason I love this exercise. It's because it makes you have to distribute and work on your balance. You can also do this with a kettlebell, right? But again, you just want to focus on good here. Really pretend like you're doing a hook.